Thank you very much, Chrissy. As always, thank you very much to the fabulous RIU team and for putting on this conference, for every one of you being here. It's been an interesting conference this year. I think I've done this 4 or 5 years in a row, and certainly noticed a lot more people in the room, a lot more activity at the booths. The gold people are insufferably happy this year, and it's nice to see, because it's not a zero-sum game. I'm not going to talk a lot about copper today, but I will say I think you're going to see some volatility over the next 6 months as the world works out which way is up. I'm unashamedly an economist first, and I believe ultimately demand and supply and the elasticities of that supply will win out. So I suspect next year it'll be us copper people joining the gold people and being insufferably happy. Though I will say I'm an insufferably happy person most of the time anyway. Part of that is driven by having a pretty great company to work with and a pretty great board of directors to work with. We listed 4 years ago. I'm very proud to say, we've worked together for a long time. This is a very experienced board. Chair Keith Jones is in the audience today. He's put well over $1.5 million of his own cash into this company. As a percentage of net worth, I am definitely, shall we say, highly invested as well on our board. Robin and Paul, engineers, both of them, have put over 17 projects into production over their working lives. So this is not a West Perth junior board, the dog that caught the car. These are serious people that get companies moving. Now, our share price had an interesting run-up about 3.5 years ago due to an intercept in the basement, about 400 meters below anything I'm going to talk about today. It was a wonderful ride and an interesting time. But our main focus on listing 4 years ago and remains now is the sedimentary copper cobalt in this project. So pretty disciplined, just 250 million shares on issue, 6 mil in the bank, which for a company with a 22 million market cap is phenomenal. That's more than about all but 150 of the ASX listed companies in our sector. So we're reasonably well cashed up, we're very motivated, and we're very experienced. Now, I try and do things a little bit differently. I feel terribly sorry for Chrissy, who has to sit through 102 of these things. It's above and beyond the call of any duty, I think. But I did IMARC last year. I much prefer this conference, I have to say. But I will say one of the things that they do very well is a pitch battle. You get 3 minutes to talk, and then you get a lot of Q&A. So because we can't do Q&A today, I'm going to ask myself my own questions. But I'm not just going to feed myself Dorothy Dixon's either. So where are we? We're 6 hours north of Adelaide. We are right on the Stuart Shelf, Gawler Creighton. This is copper central. We're surrounded by BHP's Oz Minerals acquisition, now BHP of course, but you've got major companies exploring in the area as well. It's not just nearology. We have over 1.1 million tons of contained copper, cobalt, and silver on this tenure. 3 open pits, 1 underground. The underground, for the avoidance of doubt, is at 400 meters. It is a flat-dipping sedimentary ore body. It is not an IOCG, and it is not related to the intercept that we got so famous for 3 years ago. We were drilling this thing at the time. We had some spare cash, and we sort of threw a bit of an interesting hole down, and we discovered something, and that remains unfinished business. But the primary focus of the company remains the sedimentary. Great thing about open pits, and I'm going to quickly run through these, but there are so many resources online that you can go and see this in more detail at your own leisure. Just 15 meters below dune sand, free dig stuff. 1.4% primary copper in an open pit under sand. 1.9% in the copper equivalent. We unashamedly use copper equivalents, and I'll talk in a sec why. Windabout, the second deposit, slightly deeper, much larger, slightly lower grade, still optimized to over 1% copper in the mine plan in an open pit. Great thing about open pits, it takes a little while to do your underground development. So when your main deposit is underground, you got some revenue along the way, and that's the plan. We have a phase 1 and a phase 2. The phase 1 is a concentrate cell from MG14 while we finish off the rest of the plant. Emmy Bluff, major deposit, 40 million tons at 1.3% primary copper, 1.9% copper equivalent, optimized plan for about 32 million tons over life of mine, which is about 11 years. I wouldn't mind a few more years on the back end of that. We're doing some exploration at the moment. You can see this at your leisure. It's online, but this is our resource summary. 1.1 million tons of contained copper, cobalt, and silver. This is a material project. Now, I said I wouldn't just ask myself Dorothy Dixon's. This came from, I think from memory, it was Dylan Kelly from Terra Capital. So my idea here was, I get asked a lot of questions. We're a very open and transparent company. We have our own podcast. Sounds ridiculous, but there's 19 episodes, about 11,000 views now on YouTube alone, plus Apple and Spotify. One of our shareholders came up to us yesterday and said, "You care so much about us. You're the only company that actually does something and then tells us why. You do a raise, you sit down, you spend 10 minutes explaining why you did it, how you did it, giving us the reasons and what you plan to do with the money. You put out a scoping study, you sit down with your technical people." And again, you don't just get to hear from me, you get to hear from Matt Weber, our wonderful exploration manager, Katrina Cedar, our fantastic commercial manager. So it's a whole team endeavor. Anyway, back to the ore body. Rather flat. This thing confuses Australians. Very, very common in the rest of the world, though. It's a flat-dipping ore body. You can see here the surface 400 metres above it. This is 6 hours north of Adelaide, just next to Woomera in South Australia. Surface of the moon stuff, we have the most wonderful pastoralist. He found out we were planning to camp on site for the most recent campaign, immediately made space in the shearing quarters and feeding our people as well. That's the kind of relationships we have. The Coda, the TOs, wonderful people, always available with us. We've built a fantastic relationship. Shareholders massively misunderestimate how important these things are. You can talk about intercepts all day. Nothing will kill a project like bad environmental issues and bad relationships. And in this area, we lead a blessed life. So how are we going to mine it? Well, this is the mechanical cutter, Big Chompy as I call it. This is a Komatsu machine, very common in softer rocks, and this is a very soft black dolomitic shale. But again, I wanted to show you this, but we also have a second plan, so we've put both out to ASX using just a more traditional long hole open stoping. That's the joy of a scoping study. Once you get to the end of a PFS, you need to know what you're planning to do. But we're maintaining the two plans. These look really good. We had Mining Plus do the work. I've just had another peer review, so 2 peer reviews. If there is one thing that does not keep me up at night, and plenty does, it is the underground mining of this thing. It works. We have done a lot of work here, and we believe it's really solid. So this is the plan as you develop it. It's a nice little flat thing. It should recover extremely well. We've just put into place a pillar robbing strategy as well, so we get more of the mineralization, and there's about 11 years there. Okay, cobalt, or copper cobalt. Again, this was asked of me by a very well-known fundie, and I thought it was such a good question, I would share it with yourselves as well. Copper cobalt can be challenging. Like, what is our confidence? How are we processing it? The first thing, and this is again something else that's a little bit less common in Australia, the ore body doesn't look like a West Australian gold reef, and the cobalt is almost unique in this country. It's carolite, so I've put the chemical formula up there. It's a pure copper cobalt sulfide. It recovers 85% concentrate, 93% albion. What most of us are used to when we think about cobalt is either your nickel laterites with their enormous capexes and the risk with Indonesian nickel sort of undercutting on the price curve, or even worse, your cobaltiferous pyrite where it's locked up with the iron sulfides. You need expensive roasting and pyrometallurgy to liberate it. This stuff just floats, recovers. Final products, the very last tweaking will be a challenge, and we're not blind to that. But battery-grade cobalt sulfate, even better. The government has put in place now the Future Made in Australia policy. On a net present value basis, that increases our post-tax MPV by about $25 million. Cash is about obviously 2.5 times that undiscounted. In the early stages of the project, it reduces the royalty payments from 5 to 3.5. We'll also be trying to negotiate holidays, don't worry, but this makes it a much more fundable, much more exciting project. Iggy, phenomenal speaker, it's always hard following him, but talking about cobalt, most of it comes from the DRC. Green power in South Australia, we'll probably put some similar technologies on site for demand management as well to the Altec stuff. So you've got green power, you've got phenomenal ESG characteristics, and you've got that cobalt, which we're pretty confident about. So none of that's particularly exciting if it doesn't make money, but it does make money. $1.2 billion pre-tax, MPV over life of mine. We're using pretty conservative assumptions there. FX at 0.68. Don't even get me started on what companies are doing with FXs right now. They keep taking the win off the sales and forgetting they've got to buy the equipment. So we are retaining 0.68 because we believe that's fair. We'll keep looking at that over time. Copper price well below spot this morning. The cobalt price is an interesting one. I do see, obviously the spot price is lower. The 25-year long-term average is about $56,000 a ton. It's trading in the 30s at the moment, 20s and 30s. There's been major flooding of the market, but the supply out of the DRC isn't there behind it. The people at Benchmark Minerals swear that these are the right numbers, so we're standing by them, and I do believe that's absolutely fair. As a percentage of revenue, it's dropping significantly. It used to be 30%, it's more like 20 now. Silver, interestingly, has gone from about 3% to 10% of our estimated revenue. So again, that's becoming more de-risked over time, which is absolutely phenomenal. Plenty of upside there. 802 for the grown-ups of the post-tax NPV. Why companies don't quote post-tax, I'll never know. Production over life of mine, 27,000 tons per annum from a pre-production capex of just $331. $1.80 all in sustaining cost. But the really cool thing, 1,300 tons of battery-grade cobalt sulfate planned per annum. When you look at the capital intensity of that, that's about a seventh of some of the big nickel, cobalt, laterite projects. And then 1.1 million ounces of silver. As I say, didn't used to get me excited, but wow, that silver price, eh? Short-term catalysts, what else have we got? Well, here's the drill rig running right now on site. Isn't that a lovely thing to see? It's been a while coming and makes me very happy. So that's the RC rig. The diamond tails will start soon. What are we doing? Well, you've got the main ore body right in the center here. Just out to the side, you've got these wonderful anomalies where you can see here, and the planned drill holes. Hopefully you can see this on the screen. We're currently drilling. It's hard to annotate this thing. Here we go. Currently drilling here, then we'll move up to here, and then we'll come down to these two down here. So very exciting stuff. Final question, just wrapping up. This was asked to me by Matt Fifield, Pacific Road Capital. Awesome guy, because he asks tough questions, but then he'll sit down and talk through your strategy with you and actually give you some good feedback. So what's the spark? Why should I invest? Who is Coda? What are you doing? What are you trying to do? I tried to distill this into 3 simple words. We're innovative. I think we've done more with this project than there are some great teams out there, but I think we have done more than most people ever would or could have. We are extremely hard workers. We are very innovative. We really care about getting results, and we've taken low recoveries to high recoveries. We've increased the net present value. People who give me grief for updating the scoping study, I'll never understand that. Make it better. Make it work. Not everyone has to be at the journey, and we certainly won't 2 years ago when we put this out, but that journey is coming to a really good destination now. As I said, the board's very experienced. We have a quality asset. You have a great board, you have a hard-working team. If the asset's no good, it doesn't help. 1.1 million tons, it's in South Australia, it has great ESG characteristics. It has phenomenal mining characteristics. The processing is simple, it's commonly used, it's well understood, and there's solid grades in there. What next then? Well, we're drilling. The drilling is a nice to have. We have over, I think I've said it 10 times, but over 1 million tons contained. One of the biggest copper projects in Australia, full stop. We're in a great location. If we find some more, that should add some great extra mine life on the projects and add the economics. If we don't, you're still sitting there with a $1.2 billion company. One thing I'll say about the drilling is these are big swings, but I'm excited. I think I said I don't lose sleep over the mining, but trust me, I'm losing a bit of sleep at the moment. Hopefully we'll start getting the first results next week. Funding, always the elephant in the room. Certainly we've had a discount from the history with the project, with the IOCG exploration. That remains unfinished business. That comes along for the ride. I haven't talked about it a lot here, but we do talk about it online a lot. We will need to find a funding solution. I'm a great believer in saying that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Get this right. That doesn't mean we're dragging it out, mind you. But in this market, a lot of funders are sitting on the side. You see what happened in gold. You saw what's happening in uranium in the early days in lithium. Once the market starts to settle, when people get moving, they get moving hard, and those funds become available. We're in constant talks with groups. We get taken very seriously. And this project, in my opinion, absolutely will be a mine one day. Please go to our social media sites. Please go to our website. Please interact with us. We always respond to emails. And come and see us at the booth as well. Thank you very much.